In news that was fairly much predicted, the Reserve Bank today announced it would be leaving interest rates unchanged at 0.75% following today's meeting. Now, the stay comes after the RBA cut rates in June, July and October in order to lift economic growth and lower unemployment levels. In a statement, RBA Governor Philip Lowe said that the interest rate cuts from earlier this year were supporting jobs and wages growth, all in an attempt, he says, to return inflation to the medium-term target range. And in MEDEVAC news today, 1/3 of asylum seekers and refugees in PNG and Nauru, well, they've applied for transfer to Australia, surprise, surprise, under controversial MEDEVAC laws. The fate of the laws still remains uncertain, with Senator Jackie Lambie the ultimate vote that Scott Morrison must secure in order to repeal these laws. Sky News presenter Peter Gleeson and investigations editor for the Herald Sun and Sunday Herald Sun, James Campbell, join me live now. Let's start with that, Peter Gleeson. Let's start with the issue of just this enormous spike of medical evacuation applications, all because people on Nauru and Manus Island and the activists here fear that the government might just succeed in repealing these laws.
Well, let's call it for what it is, Peter Credlin. It's a rort. It's a bona fide rort, and we can thank Karen Phelps for that. And I think border protection has emerged as one of the great challenges of our time. You just made reference, you were talking to Chuck Miranda there about the problems besetting this country with allowing terrorists out. You know, I have a view there. I think we should just throw the key away, just keep them locked up forever. But as far as bringing in, you know, these illegal immigrants back here from Nauru and Manus Island, I mean, at the moment they're being exploitative. They are taking advantage of the system. And, you know, you've got to hand it to Peter Dutton. You've got to hand it to Scott Morrison. They've put their foot down, and I can't for the life of me think why Jackie Lambie is equivocating on this issue.
When we first started talking about this, James Campbell, we made the point that overseas there's 450 odd people in these offshore processing centres. In some cases, and I've been to Nauru, I've seen the hospital, there's 60 to 70 medical personnel. The idea that basically everyone there is in such a bad way they must come to Australia calls this for what it is. I mean, this was never a loophole that's enabled them to get to Australia. This is by design the backdoor way to get to Australia.
Absolutely. We've said this before. It's not a bug, it's a feature. The legislation was designed to allow these people to come to Australia via the back door. Now, it's no surprise, given the fact that this is about to be repealed potentially, and it looks like, you know, there's more likely than not that it'll be repealed, the number of people who are seeking to take advantage of it has surged. I mean, there's nothing really... It's James, the least surprising news all day, isn't it?
You're a political analyst, and you know you're good at looking at the trends with both parties. Why has Labor allowed themselves to get in a position now where they look like that they are much weaker on border protection after spending most of their years in opposition trying to get themselves, you know, closer to the government to neutralise what is electorally very difficult for them?
I think a lot of it is to do with the failure to really confront internally and in many cases intellectually the role that this played in their defeat in May. I think that they have told themselves a story that MEDEVAC played no role in it, despite the fact that if you talk to people, the Labor Party's numbers started to tank in Queensland as soon as it was passed. To admit that this was a mistake politically, it's just too hard. Their internals won't really allow it. It's not something that they're in a position, because it's quite a fragile situation around the leadership, that they really want to discuss. And it's much easier to stick to their guns and tell themselves that this doesn't matter, that we played no role in our defeat, people don't care, the public sentiment has moved, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, the other thing to remember, of course, is at the end of the day, because there are so few people involved in this, sooner or later they will run out of people to access this legislation. And maybe I suspect that's Labor's plan, is that they're simply going to run the clock down on it.
Yeah, well, of course, Labor put the people on the island in the first place. The 50,000 came under their watch and they're not prepared to clean it up. Peter Gleeson, I want to move to another issue.
Peter?
Now, you jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's another example where the left of the Labor Party have hijacked their agenda. They've done it with climate change. They've done it with coal. They're doing it with MEDEVAC. And it just shows just how out of touch they are. James is 100% right. As soon as this legislation was passed, they lost Queensland. You know, when Jackie Trad spoke about miners being re-skilled, coal miners being re-skilled in central Queensland, they lost Queensland. When they started talking about taxing retirees, they lost Queensland. That's where they lost the election.
All right, well, talking of Queensland, I mean, it might have saved Scott Morrison's bacon, but it looks like saving New South Wales over the next few years. Report out today, and the report's from Energy Quest, commissioned by the New South Wales Business Chamber, but it says that New South Wales will run out of gas by 2025. That's in, you know, near-term history. That's only 6 years away, and that's because you know, a whole range of reasons about getting the gas that they know was in the ground, over 170 years worth in New South Wales, to market. But it means that prices will triple, and the only way out of this jam is to bring the gas in from Queensland. So yet again, you know, Queensland, you're not scared of gas and you're not scared of coal. Everyone else virtual signalling all the way down the eastern seaboard, if it wasn't for Queensland, would be in a very, very bad way.
And that's exactly what my column was about on Sunday, Peter, where I basically said that Queensland was saving the bacon of New South Wales and Victoria. And I know James is in Victoria there. The Andrews government have put a moratorium on gas exploration in Victoria, jumping into bed with the Greens on this particular issue. The problem at the moment is that we've got Daniel Andrews and Gladys Berejiklian appeasing the Greens and appeasing the inner city elites at the expense of mums and dads, because gas prices are going through the roof. And we see it in Queensland with the reliability of coal-fired coal production here in Queensland, electricity production, being pumped into the grid, the national grid in places like South Australia and Victoria, when the lights go out and when the blackouts happen. It's just another example of virtue signalling affecting the southern states, and Queensland are jumping on board to help out.
You know, do Victorians need a gas shortage? Do Victorians need the lights to go off before they're going to wake up to this?
Well, can I just address one thing that Peter just said there? Yes, that may be so today, but it wasn't so very long ago that Queensland had sold a whole lot of gas contracts to export that they couldn't fulfil, and they were buying our gas out of Victoria, which was driving prices up here, which was damaging Victorian industry. You know,
that was then. This is now. Tell me what happens now. Well, it used to swing when Victoria was into fossil fuels, but Peter Gleeson's right. They don't have onshore gas exploration anymore. They're basically running brown coal and out of town.
Sure.
So where to now?
Well, but I mean, this onshore gas exploration, I suspect, is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, we had 50 years of exploration down here. I'm not sure that there's that much gas here in conventional anyway, and nobody really in Victorian politics, left or right, wants to have a discussion about fracking. You will remember that the ban on exploration was brought in by a Liberal national government. It didn't even go to cabinet. It was it was initially brought in by by Ted Baillieu, and then strengthened by Dennis Napthine in the lead up to the election. The National Party were absolutely browning their trousers over the Shut the Gate movement. It was brought in unanimously, and I simply cannot see a situation in which the politics of that is going to change that much down here.
I'll have to leave it there.
In Canberra,
I think
but
you're
down
right.
in Melbourne.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, James Campbell, Peter Gleeson. All right, quick break. Coming back, we're going to talk to Melinda Pavey, New South Wales Water Minister. What is all Canberra's talking about, and here in New South Wales as well.